Question 1. The efficiency study reveals that a large enterprise IP network, utilizing OSPF as its primary interior gateway protocol, is experiencing increased control plane overhead and slower route convergence times during topology changes. This is attributed to an excessively large number of LSAs being flooded throughout the OSPF domain, leading to a significant number of routes in the routing tables of core routers. The network administrator is tasked with improving this situation without compromising network reachability or introducing significant configuration complexity that deviates from standard OSPF practices. Which of the following approaches would best address the identified efficiency issues while adhering to the principles of scalable IP networking, as covered in the 4A0-100 Alcatel Lucent Scalable IP Networks curriculum? Option A. Disable OSPF summarization and filtering entirely to ensure all routers have the most granular routing information available. Option B. Introduce a proprietary routing extension to OSPF to manage route aggregation, ensuring maximum detail is available to all routers. Option C. Implement OSPF route summarization at the area border routers ABER to reduce the number of external routes advertised into stub areas and to consolidate routing information within the backbone area. Option D. Increase the CPU and memory resources on all core routers to handle the larger volume of LSAs and routing table entries. The correct answer is C. Implement OSPF route summarization at the area border routers ABER to reduce the number of external routes advertised into stub areas and to consolidate routing information within the backbone area. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because the network administrator must balance the immediate need for network stability and performance with the long-term implications of their configuration choices, particularly concerning the efficient use of network resources and adherence to established routing principles. The study highlights a potential inefficiency, requiring a nuanced understanding of routing protocols and their impact on scalability. Careful judgment is required to select a solution that not only addresses the immediate issue, but also aligns with best practices for scalable IP networks as defined by the 4A0-100 curriculum. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the identified inefficiency by optimizing the routing table size and convergence time. This aligns with the core principles of scalable IP networking, which emphasize efficient resource utilization and robust, predictable routing behavior. By implementing a more granular routing policy or utilizing route summarization where appropriate, the administrator ensures that the network can handle growth without performance degradation or increased control plane overhead. This proactive measure prevents future issues and maintains network integrity, a key ethical and professional responsibility. An incorrect approach that involves simply increasing router hardware resources without addressing the underlying routing inefficiency is professionally unacceptable. This fails to solve the root cause of the problem and represents a costly, short-sighted solution. It also ignores the principle of efficient design, which is central to scalable networking. Ethically, it could be seen as wasteful and lacking in professional diligence. Another incorrect approach, such as disabling route filtering or summarization to simplify the configuration, would be professionally unacceptable. This would lead to larger routing tables, slower convergence times, and increased susceptibility to routing instability, directly contradicting the goals of scalable IP networks. This approach demonstrates a lack of understanding of fundamental routing principles and could lead to significant network disruptions, violating professional duty of care. A third incorrect approach, such as implementing a complex, proprietary routing solution not covered by the 4A0-100 syllabus, would be professionally unacceptable. This introduces vendor lock-in and deviates from standardized, scalable routing practices. It also bypasses the established knowledge base and best practices that the certification aims to validate, potentially leading to interoperability issues and maintenance challenges. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Thoroughly understanding the problem statement and the specific metrics indicating inefficiency. 2. Consulting the relevant technical documentation and best practices for the routing protocols in use, as per the 4A0-100 curriculum. 3. Evaluating potential solutions based on their impact on scalability, performance, stability, and resource utilization. 4. Prioritizing solutions that address the root cause of the inefficiency rather than applying superficial fixes. 5. considering the long-term implications of any proposed change on the overall network architecture. 6. Documenting the chosen solution and the rationale behind it. Question 2. Assessment of the most effective methodology for identifying and prioritizing potential security vulnerabilities within a new Alcatel Lucent IP network deployment, considering the introduction of advanced services that handle sensitive customer data. Option A. Prioritize the deployment of new services based on business urgency, deferring detailed security risk assessments to a later operational phase. Option B. Rely solely on the organization's existing security policies, without conducting a specific risk assessment for the new network deployment. Option C. Implement all available security features recommended by the network equipment vendor as a baseline, assuming they cover all potential threats. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive threat modeling exercise, followed by a vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, to identify and quantify potential risks before implementing security controls. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive threat modeling exercise, followed by a vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, to identify and quantify potential risks before implementing security controls. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in network engineering, balancing the need for robust security with the operational requirements of a scalable IP network. The introduction of new services, particularly those involving sensitive data or critical infrastructure, necessitates a thorough risk assessment to identify potential vulnerabilities and their impact. The challenge lies in accurately identifying threats, assessing their likelihood and impact, and then devising appropriate mitigation strategies without unduly hindering network performance or introducing new operational complexities. The pressure to deploy new services quickly can sometimes lead to shortcuts in the risk assessment process, which is a significant professional and ethical concern. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and comprehensive risk assessment process. This begins with identifying all potential threats to the network's integrity, confidentiality, and availability, considering both internal and external factors. Subsequently, the likelihood of each threat materializing and the potential impact on business operations and data are evaluated. This evaluation should be based on objective criteria and, where possible, historical data or industry benchmarks. The outcome of this assessment directly informs the selection and prioritization of security controls and mitigation strategies. This aligns with best professional practices in network security and risk management, ensuring that resources are allocated effectively to address the most significant risks. From a regulatory perspective, while the 4A0-100 exam focuses on technical aspects, the underlying principle of due diligence in protecting network infrastructure and data is implicitly supported by general IT governance frameworks that emphasize risk management. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to solely rely on vendor-provided security features without independent verification or a tailored risk assessment. Vendors may offer a suite of security tools, but these are often generic and may not address the specific threat landscape or operational context of the deploying organization. This approach fails to meet the professional obligation to understand and mitigate unique risks, potentially leaving critical vulnerabilities unaddressed. Ethically, this can be seen as a failure of due diligence. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize speed of deployment over thorough risk analysis. While time to market is important, rushing the risk assessment process can lead to overlooking critical vulnerabilities. This can result in significant security breaches, data loss, or service disruptions, which have severe operational and reputational consequences. This approach demonstrates a lack of professional responsibility and can lead to regulatory noncompliance if data protection laws are violated. A third incorrect approach is to focus only on known threats and ignore potential novel or emerging threats. The threat landscape is constantly evolving. A robust risk assessment must consider not only documented threats, but also potential future threats based on industry trends and technological advancements. Neglecting this aspect leaves the network susceptible to unforeseen attacks, representing a failure in proactive risk management. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured risk management framework. This involves establishing clear objectives for the risk assessment, defining the scope of the assessment, identifying assets and their value, identifying threats and vulnerabilities, analyzing risks, likelihood and impact, evaluating risks and treating risks, mitigation, acceptance, transfer, or avoidance. Continuous monitoring and review are also crucial as the network and threat landscape evolve. This systematic process ensures that security measures are proportionate to the identified risks and align with business objectives, demonstrating professional competence and ethical responsibility. Question 3. Comparative studies suggest that network engineers may encounter situations where they discover a potential security vulnerability during routine maintenance that could impact network stability and data integrity, but addressing it immediately might cause significant service disruption. What is the most ethically and professionally responsible course of action in such a scenario? Option A. Document the vulnerability internally but delay reporting it until a less disruptive time, prioritizing immediate network uptime over proactive disclosure. Option B. Attempt to fix the vulnerability discreetly without informing anyone, hoping to resolve it before it is noticed or causes any issues. Option C. Ignore the vulnerability if it does not appear to be actively exploited, assuming it is a low-priority issue that can be addressed at a later, more convenient time. Option D. Immediately report the discovered vulnerability to the relevant security and management teams, detailing its potential impact and proposing a plan for mitigation or remediation, even if it means scheduling a controlled service interruption. Correct answer is D. Immediately report the discovered vulnerability to the relevant security and management teams, detailing its potential impact and proposing a plan for mitigation or remediation, even if it means scheduling a controlled service interruption. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the immediate need for network stability and the ethical obligation to disclose potential security vulnerabilities. Network engineers often face pressure to resolve issues quickly, which can lead to overlooking or downplaying risks that might require more extensive remediation. The core of the challenge lies in balancing operational demands with the responsibility to maintain the integrity and security of the network, which has implications for data confidentiality and availability. Careful judgment is required to assess the severity of the vulnerability, its potential impact, and the appropriate course of action without compromising network performance or security. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes transparency and proactive risk management. By immediately reporting the discovered vulnerability, the engineer adheres to ethical guidelines that mandate reporting of security weaknesses. This allows for a coordinated response, including proper assessment, mitigation planning, and timely remediation, thereby preventing potential exploitation. This aligns with the principles of responsible network management and cybersecurity best practices, ensuring that stakeholders are informed and can make decisions based on accurate information. An incorrect approach that involves ignoring or downplaying the vulnerability is professionally unacceptable due to several regulatory and ethical failures. Firstly, it violates the duty of care owed to the organization and its users, as it knowingly allows a potential security risk to persist. This could lead to data breaches, service disruptions, and reputational damage, all of which have significant financial and legal ramifications. Secondly, it undermines the principles of integrity and honesty, essential for professional conduct. Concealing such information can be construed as a breach of trust and may violate internal company policies regarding security incident reporting. Another incorrect approach, which is to attempt to fix the vulnerability without proper authorization or documentation, is also professionally unsound. While seemingly proactive, this bypasses established change management processes and security protocols. It risks introducing unintended consequences, further destabilizing the network, or failing to address the root cause effectively. This approach also fails to involve relevant security teams or management, hindering a comprehensive understanding and response to the threat. It can lead to a lack of accountability and make it difficult to track the incident and its resolution. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, thoroughly assess the nature and potential impact of the discovered issue. Second, consult relevant internal policies and procedures for reporting security incidents or network anomalies. Third, communicate the findings clearly and concisely to the appropriate stakeholders, such as the security team or management, providing all necessary technical details. Fourth, collaborate with these stakeholders to determine the best course of action, which may involve immediate remediation, further investigation, or a planned update. Throughout this process, Maintain accurate documentation of all findings, actions taken, and communications. This systematic approach ensures that decisions are informed, ethical, and aligned with organizational objectives and regulatory requirements. Question 4. Operational review demonstrates that a significant number of customer traffic flows are experiencing intermittent packet loss, impacting service quality. To diagnose the root cause, a network engineer needs to analyze packet captures. The available packet captures contain sensitive customer information, including IP addresses, port numbers, and potentially application-level data. The engineer is tasked with identifying the source of the packet loss efficiently. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible approach to analyzing the packet captures for performance troubleshooting? Option A. Share the raw, unanalyzed packet captures with a third-party network analysis tool provider for their expertise in identifying the packet loss without informing the customers. Option B. Proceed with the analysis of the raw packet captures, assuming that network engineers are implicitly authorized to access all traffic data for operational reasons. Option C. Directly analyze the raw packet captures, as the primary objective is to resolve the network issue quickly, and the data is only being accessed for technical troubleshooting purposes. Option D. Anonymize or pseudonymize the customer data within the packet captures before performing the analysis, or use tools that can filter out sensitive information to protect customer privacy. Correct answer is D. Anonymize or pseudonymize the customer data within the packet captures before performing the analysis, or use tools that can filter out sensitive information to protect customer privacy. Explanation. This scenario presents an ethical dilemma concerning data privacy and network security within the context of the 4A0-100 Alcatel Lucent Scalable IP Networks curriculum, which implicitly adheres to general principles of responsible network operation and data handling. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for network performance improvement with the potential for unauthorized access to sensitive customer data. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any troubleshooting or optimization efforts do not inadvertently compromise customer privacy or violate data protection regulations. The correct approach prioritizes data minimization and anonymization, aligning with best practices in network security and data privacy. By anonymizing or pseudonymizing customer data before analysis, the network engineer upholds the principle of least privilege and protects sensitive information from potential exposure. This proactive measure ensures compliance with data protection principles, even if specific regulations are not explicitly detailed in the exam's scope, by adhering to the spirit of responsible data stewardship. This approach represents best professional practice because it demonstrates a commitment to both technical excellence and ethical conduct, safeguarding customer trust and mitigating legal and reputational risks. An incorrect approach that involves direct analysis of unencrypted customer traffic, even for performance tuning, poses significant regulatory and ethical failures. It risks unauthorized access to personally identifiable information, PI, or other sensitive data, which could violate data privacy laws and ethical codes of conduct. This approach demonstrates a lack of due diligence in protecting customer data and could lead to severe consequences, including fines, legal action, and loss of customer confidence. Another incorrect approach, which involves sharing raw, unanalyzed traffic data with external parties without explicit consent or anonymization, is also professionally unacceptable. This action constitutes a breach of confidentiality and a potential violation of data protection regulations. It exposes sensitive customer information to unnecessary risks and demonstrates a disregard for privacy obligations. A further incorrect approach, which is to ignore the potential privacy implications and proceed with the analysis without any safeguards, is ethically negligent. It prioritizes immediate technical goals over fundamental responsibilities to protect customer data. This demonstrates a failure to consider the broader impact of network operations and a lack of professional accountability. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a risk-based assessment. First, identify the potential for data exposure. Second, evaluate the sensitivity of the data involved. Third, explore all available methods to mitigate risks, such as anonymization, pseudonymization, or using synthetic data. Fourth, consult relevant internal policies and, if necessary, legal counsel regarding data handling and privacy. Finally, document the decision-making process and the chosen mitigation strategies to ensure transparency and accountability. Question 5. Strategic planning requires a proactive approach to network deployment. When designing a scalable IP network for an organization that handles sensitive customer data, what is the most critical consideration to ensure regulatory compliance? Option A. Prioritizing the implementation of the highest available network throughput and lowest latency to enhance user experience. Option B. Deploying the network solution first and addressing regulatory compliance concerns as they arise after the system is operational. Option C. Thoroughly integrating all applicable regulatory requirements into the network design and implementation phases from the outset. Option D. Focusing exclusively on the technical specifications and performance metrics of the IP network infrastructure. The correct answer is C. Thoroughly integrating all applicable regulatory requirements into the network design and implementation phases from the outset. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge in network design and deployment where the implementation of a new IP network must adhere to specific regulatory compliance requirements. The challenge lies in balancing the technical benefits of a proposed solution with the legal and ethical obligations to protect sensitive data and ensure network integrity as mandated by the relevant regulatory framework. Failure to comply can result in significant penalties, reputational damage, and loss of trust from stakeholders. The need for careful judgment arises from interpreting and applying these regulations to a complex technical environment. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough review and integration of all applicable regulatory requirements into the network design and implementation phases. This means actively seeking out and understanding the specific mandates related to data privacy, security, and network resilience. By prioritizing compliance from the outset, the design team ensures that the network architecture inherently supports regulatory obligations. This proactive stance is best professional practice because it minimizes the risk of non-compliance, reduces the cost and complexity of retrofitting solutions, and demonstrates a commitment to ethical and legal responsibilities. Adherence to the specific regulatory framework for the exam jurisdiction, which is assumed to be a general framework for IP networks without specific country designation, unless otherwise stated, means ensuring the network design supports principles like data minimization, access control, and auditability, which are common across many regulatory landscapes governing digital infrastructure. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a network solution without a comprehensive understanding of regulatory requirements is a significant ethical and professional failure. This approach prioritizes technical expediency or perceived cost savings over legal obligations. It creates a high risk of noncompliance, potentially leading to data breaches, unauthorized access, and violations of privacy laws. Such a failure is professionally unacceptable, as it demonstrates a disregard for the legal framework governing network operations and the protection of user data. Focusing solely on the technical performance metrics of the IP network, such as throughput and latency, without considering regulatory implications, is another form of professional failure. While performance is important, it cannot supersede legal and ethical duties. This approach neglects the critical aspects of security, privacy, and data integrity that are often mandated by regulations. It is professionally unacceptable because it prioritizes operational efficiency in a vacuum, ignoring the broader context of responsible network deployment and data stewardship. Adopting a wait-and-see approach to regulatory compliance, assuming that specific requirements will become clearer or less stringent later, is a dangerous and professionally irresponsible strategy. This reactive stance increases the likelihood of costly redesigns, legal challenges, and penalties. It demonstrates a lack of foresight and a failure to uphold professional duties to anticipate and mitigate risks. This approach is professionally unacceptable as it places the organization and its stakeholders at unnecessary risk. Professional reasoning. Professionals in network design and deployment must adopt a risk-based and compliance-driven approach. This involves 1. Identifying all relevant regulatory frameworks and legal obligations applicable to the network's intended use and data handling. 2. Integrating compliance requirements into the initial network design and architecture, treating them as fundamental design constraints rather than afterthoughts. 3. Conducting thorough risk assessments that specifically evaluate potential regulatory noncompliance scenarios. 4. implementing robust security controls, access management policies, and data protection mechanisms that align with regulatory mandates. 5. Establishing clear audit trails and monitoring mechanisms to demonstrate ongoing compliance. 6. Seeking expert legal and compliance advice when interpreting complex regulations or when designing for novel network functionalities. 7. Prioritizing continuous learning and staying updated on evolving regulatory landscapes. Question 6. The monitoring system demonstrates a consistent increase in reported latency for a critical IP service, yet end-user feedback indicates normal performance. What is the most appropriate initial step to reconcile this discrepancy and ensure service integrity? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive series of packet captures and trace routes from multiple points within the Alcatel Lucent network and from affected user locations to validate the reported latency against actual network behavior. Option B. Immediately adjust the monitoring system's latency thresholds to align with the reported user experience, assuming the system is generating false positives. Option C. Focus troubleshooting efforts exclusively on external network providers and internet service providers, as the internal network is presumed to be functioning correctly. Option D. Initiate a reboot of all core Alcatel Lucent network devices in the affected service path to clear any potential transient issues. Correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive series of packet captures and trace routes from multiple points within the Alcatel Lucent network and from affected user locations to validate the reported latency against actual network behavior. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the critical need for accurate and timely network performance data to meet service-level agreements, SLAs, and regulatory compliance. The discrepancy between the monitoring system's reported latency and the actual user experience creates a significant risk. Failure to address this can lead to breaches of contractual obligations with customers, potential financial penalties, and damage to the organization's reputation. The challenge lies in identifying the root cause of the discrepancy and implementing a solution that not only resolves the immediate issue, but also prevents recurrence, all while adhering to operational best practices and any relevant service provider guidelines. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic investigation that prioritizes validating the monitoring system's data against real-world conditions. This means employing multiple diagnostic tools and methodologies to triangulate the source of the latency. This could include packet captures, trace routes from various points in the network, and direct testing from affected user locations. The goal is to isolate whether the issue lies within the Alcatel Lucent network infrastructure itself, external network segments, or the monitoring system's configuration or placement. This methodical approach ensures that actions taken are based on verified data, leading to an effective and efficient resolution. It aligns with professional best practices for network troubleshooting and service assurance, which emphasize data-driven decision-making and thorough root cause analysis. Adherence to service provider guidelines, which often mandate specific response times and resolution procedures for performance degradations, is also implicitly supported by this thorough investigation. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to immediately assume the monitoring system is flawed and adjust its thresholds without verifying the actual network performance. This bypasses critical diagnostic steps and could mask a genuine network issue, leading to continued user dissatisfaction and potential SLA violations. This failure to investigate thoroughly is a direct contravention of professional network management principles and could be seen as a dereliction of duty if it results in unmet service commitments. Another incorrect approach is to focus solely on external network factors without examining the Alcatel Lucent infrastructure. While external issues can cause latency, the core responsibility for the performance of the managed network segment lies with the service provider. Ignoring potential internal causes means the organization might fail to identify and rectify problems within its own domain, leading to recurring issues and a lack of accountability. This approach demonstrates a lack of comprehensive problem solving and can result in prolonged service degradation. A third incorrect approach is to implement a quick fix, such as restarting network devices, without understanding the underlying cause. While this might temporarily alleviate the symptom, it does not address the root problem. This can lead to intermittent issues, making future troubleshooting more difficult and increasing the likelihood of future performance degradations. It represents a reactive rather than proactive approach to network management and fails to build a resilient and stable network. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a discrepancy should adopt a structured problem-solving framework. This begins with clearly defining the problem and its impact. Next, gather all available data, including monitoring system alerts, user reports, and historical performance metrics. Formulate hypotheses about potential causes, ranging from internal infrastructure issues to external factors. Prioritize testing these hypotheses through systematic diagnostics, starting with the most likely or impactful causes. Document all findings and actions taken. Once the root cause is identified, implement a targeted solution and verify its effectiveness. Finally, review the incident to identify lessons learned and implement preventative measures to avoid recurrence. This iterative and data-driven process ensures that network issues are resolved efficiently and effectively, maintaining service quality and customer trust. Question 7. Stakeholder feedback indicates a potential for increased routing instability if a proposed configuration change to the network's interior gateway protocol is implemented. What is the most professional and effective approach to address this feedback and proceed with the network evolution? Option A. Implement the proposed configuration change in a production environment during a low-traffic period and monitor for any immediate issues without a formal impact assessment. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that quantifies the potential effects of the proposed change on key routing stability metrics, using controlled testing or simulation to validate findings against established baselines. Option C. Postpone the proposed configuration change indefinitely until the operational team can provide definitive proof of the routing instability without conducting any further investigation. Option D. Immediately implement the proposed configuration change, as the benefits of the new protocol features are deemed more critical than the operational team's concerns. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that quantifies the potential effects of the proposed change on key routing stability metrics, using controlled testing or simulation to validate findings against established baselines. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in network deployment where a critical network function, the IP routing stability, is perceived to be negatively impacted by a proposed change. The challenge lies in balancing the need for network evolution and feature enhancement with the imperative to maintain service stability and meet established service level agreements, SLAs. Stakeholder feedback, especially from operations teams, often carries significant weight due to their direct responsibility for network uptime and performance. The difficulty arises from the potential for subjective interpretation of impact and the need for objective, data-driven assessment against defined network performance metrics and operational guidelines. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a structured impact assessment that quantifies the potential effects of the proposed routing protocol configuration change on IP routing stability. This aligns with best practices for network change management, emphasizing proactive risk mitigation and informed decision-making. Specifically, it requires defining clear measurable metrics for routing stability, e.g., route flap rates, convergence times, packet loss during convergence, and establishing baseline performance levels. The assessment should then simulate or test the proposed change in a controlled environment to measure deviations from these baselines. This data-driven approach ensures that decisions are based on objective evidence rather than anecdotal feedback, thereby upholding the professional responsibility to maintain network integrity and service availability. As per the Alcatel Lucent Scalable IP Networks framework's implicit emphasis on robust and reliable network operation. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing the change without a formal impact assessment, solely based on operational team concerns, represents a failure to adhere to systematic change management processes. This bypasses the necessary validation steps, potentially introducing unforeseen instability and violating the implicit professional duty to ensure network resilience. It also fails to provide objective data to justify the change or its potential consequences. Deferring the change indefinitely without a thorough investigation into the root cause of the perceived instability is also professionally unsound. While caution is warranted, indefinite postponement hinders network evolution and may prevent the implementation of beneficial features or optimizations. It fails to address the underlying concerns systematically and may lead to a stagnation of network capabilities. Focusing solely on the perceived benefits of the new routing protocol features without a corresponding assessment of their impact on existing stability metrics is a significant oversight. This approach prioritizes innovation over operational integrity, potentially leading to a degradation of service quality. It neglects the critical requirement to ensure that new implementations do not negatively affect the core functionality and reliability of the network. Professional reasoning. Professionals in network engineering must adopt a systematic and data-driven approach to change management. This involves 1. Understanding the proposed change and its intended benefits. 2. Identifying potential risks and impacts on network stability and performance. 3. Defining clear, measurable metrics for assessing these impacts. 4. Conducting controlled testing or simulation to gather objective data. 5. Analyzing the data against predefined thresholds and SLAs. 6. Making an informed decision based on the assessment, documenting the rationale. 7. Implementing changes with rollback plans and post-implementation monitoring. This structured process ensures that decisions are defensible, minimize risk, and uphold professional standards of network reliability and service delivery. Question 8. Consider a scenario where a core router in a large enterprise network is experiencing intermittent packet loss and increased latency, impacting critical business applications. The network engineering team is under pressure to resolve this issue immediately. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the principles of designing and managing scalable IP networks as covered in the 4A0-100 curriculum? Option A. Conduct a thorough root cause analysis, examining traffic patterns, router configuration, and the interaction of routing protocols, to identify the underlying architectural issue contributing to the performance degradation before implementing any changes. Option B. Reconfigure the routing protocol to use a different metric that favors alternative paths, bypassing the congested router segment to alleviate immediate pressure. Option C. Deploy a specialized hardware acceleration module for the affected router, even if it is a proprietary solution, to offload processing and improve throughput. Option D. Immediately increase the buffer sizes on the affected router and adjust quality of service (QoS) parameters to prioritize critical application traffic, as this is a common quick fix for congestion. The correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough root cause analysis, examining traffic patterns, router configuration, and the interaction of routing protocols, to identify the underlying architectural issue contributing to the performance degradation before implementing any changes. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in network engineering, balancing the immediate need for network stability and performance with the long-term implications of design choices. The pressure to resolve a critical performance issue quickly can lead to expedient solutions that might not align with established best practices or future scalability requirements. The challenge lies in making a decision that addresses the current problem without introducing new technical debt or violating the principles of scalable network design, which are fundamental to the 4A0-100 curriculum. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough root cause analysis that considers the underlying architectural principles of scalable IP networks. This means investigating not just the symptoms of the performance degradation, but also the design choices that might be contributing to it. Adhering to the principles of modularity, hierarchical design, and efficient routing protocols, as taught in the 4A0-100, ensures that any solution is sustainable and doesn't compromise the network's ability to grow and adapt. This approach prioritizes long-term network health and operational efficiency, which are key objectives for any scalable IP network. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing a quick fix without understanding the root cause is a significant failure. This could involve simply increasing bandwidth or adjusting a single parameter, without considering its impact on other network functions or its contribution to a larger design flaw. Such an approach violates the principles of scalable network design by addressing symptoms rather than causes, potentially leading to recurring issues or unforeseen performance bottlenecks elsewhere. It also fails to leverage the knowledge gained from the 4A0-100 curriculum, which emphasizes a holistic understanding of network architecture. Another incorrect approach would be to reconfigure routing protocols in a way that bypasses established hierarchical structures or introduces suboptimal path selection. While this might temporarily alleviate congestion on a specific link, it can lead to increased routing table complexity, longer convergence times, and a general degradation of network stability and predictability. This directly contradicts the principles of efficient and scalable routing that are central to the 4A0-100. A third incorrect approach might involve deploying a proprietary or non-standard solution to address the immediate problem. While this might offer a quick fix, it can lead to vendor lock-in, interoperability issues, and difficulties in future upgrades or troubleshooting. Scalable IP networks are built on open standards and well-defined protocols, and deviating from this can create long-term operational challenges and hinder future network evolution. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a situation should employ a structured decision-making framework. This begins with clearly defining the problem and its impact. Next, they should gather data and perform a comprehensive analysis, drawing upon their knowledge of scalable IP network design principles. This involves identifying potential root causes and evaluating various solutions against criteria such as performance impact, scalability, stability, cost, and adherence to best practices. The decision should then be made based on the solution that offers the most sustainable and robust outcome, even if it requires a slightly longer implementation time than a superficial fix. Documentation and post-implementation monitoring are crucial steps to validate the solution and learn from the experience. Question 9. The investigation demonstrates that critical voice and video conferencing traffic is experiencing unacceptable latency and packet loss during peak hours, impacting user productivity. Analysis of network telemetry indicates that while overall link utilization is below 70%, specific traffic flows are being delayed. The network infrastructure utilizes Alcatel Lucent Scalable IP Networks features, including advanced queuing and classification capabilities. Which of the following strategies is the most appropriate for addressing this issue while adhering to best practices for network optimization and service assurance? Option A. Randomly adjust routing protocol timers and metrics across the network to encourage traffic to find alternative paths, hoping to alleviate congestion on current routes. Option B. Disable all quality of service (QoS) configurations on the network to simplify management and allow all traffic to compete equally for resources. Option C. Implement a quality of service (QoS) policy that classifies voice and video traffic as high priority, assigns it to a premium queue, and utilizes a strict priority or weighted fair queuing mechanism to ensure timely delivery. Option D. Increase the bandwidth of all network links by 50% to proactively accommodate potential future traffic surges and eliminate any possibility of congestion. The correct answer is C. Implement a quality of service (QoS) policy that classifies voice and video traffic as high priority, assigns it to a premium queue, and utilizes a strict priority or weighted fair queuing mechanism to ensure timely delivery. Explanation. The investigation demonstrates a common challenge in network operations, optimizing traffic flow to meet service level agreements, SLAs, while managing resource utilization efficiently. The scenario is professionally challenging because network engineers must balance competing demands, ensuring low latency and high throughput for critical applications, without over-provisioning expensive network resources. This requires a deep understanding of traffic patterns, protocol behavior, and the capabilities of the Alcatel Lucent Scalable IP Networks platform. Careful judgment is required to select an optimization strategy that is both effective and cost-efficient, adhering to the principles of good network design and operational excellence. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the observed congestion by implementing a QoS mechanism that prioritizes critical traffic. This aligns with the fundamental principles of network engineering and the capabilities of advanced IP networks, as covered in the 4A0-100 curriculum. By classifying and marking traffic, and then applying appropriate queuing and scheduling policies, the network can ensure that high-priority data receives preferential treatment, thereby meeting SLA requirements for latency-sensitive applications. This proactive management of network resources prevents degradation of service for critical users and applications, demonstrating responsible network stewardship. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on increasing link bandwidth without understanding the traffic composition or the root cause of congestion would be professionally unacceptable. This is because it represents a brute force solution that is often costly and may not effectively resolve the underlying issue if the congestion is due to inefficient traffic handling or specific application behavior. It fails to leverage the intelligent features of the network for granular control. Another incorrect approach, such as disabling CoS entirely, would be a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This would directly contravene the implicit or explicit SLAs agreed upon with customers or internal stakeholders, leading to service degradation and potential breaches of contract. It demonstrates a lack of understanding of network management responsibilities and a failure to uphold service commitments. A third incorrect approach, like randomly reconfiguring routing protocols without a clear objective or analysis of traffic impact, is professionally unsound. This could lead to unpredictable network behavior, routing loops, or further congestion, exacerbating the problem. It lacks a systematic, data-driven approach to problem-solving and risks destabilizing the network. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Problem identification and analysis. Clearly define the symptoms of congestion and analyze traffic patterns, application requirements, and existing network configurations. 2. Root cause analysis. Determine the underlying reasons for the congestion, whether it's insufficient bandwidth, inefficient queuing, protocol misconfiguration, or application-specific issues. 3. Solution design. Based on the root cause, design a solution that leverages appropriate network features and technologies. This often involves CoS, traffic shaping, or routing adjustments. 4. Implementation and testing. Carefully implement the chosen solution in a controlled manner, followed by thorough testing to verify its effectiveness and ensure no adverse side effects. 5. Monitoring and iteration. Continuously monitor network performance and be prepared to iterate on the solution if necessary, adapting to changing traffic demands and network conditions. Question 10. Upon reviewing the routing configuration for a large enterprise network employing both an interior gateway protocol, IP, and an exterior gateway protocol, EC, a network administrator observes that routes learned via the EGP are being preferred over routes learned via the IGP for internal network destinations. This preference is not due to a shorter metric. What is the most appropriate action to ensure stable and predictable internal routing? Option A. Manually create static routes for all internal destinations. Option B. Configure the EGP to advertise routes with a higher metric. Option C. Adjust the administrative distance of the IGP to be lower than that of the EGP. Option D. Increase the hop count for routes learned via the IGP. The correct answer is C. Adjust the administrative distance of the IGP to be lower than that of the EGP. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge in network design, where a network administrator must balance the need for efficient routing with the potential for network instability caused by suboptimal protocol configuration. The challenge lies in understanding the nuanced behavior of routing protocols under specific network conditions and making informed decisions that prioritize stability and performance, adhering to best practices and potential implicit service level agreements, SLAs, that govern network uptime and responsiveness. The administrator must consider not just the immediate impact of a configuration choice, but also its long-term implications for scalability and manageability. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of the chosen routing protocol's convergence characteristics and its behavior in a dynamic routing environment. Specifically, when considering the impact of administrative distance on route selection, prioritizing a lower administrative distance for a more trusted or stable routing source, e.g., an IGP within the same autonomous system, over a less trusted or potentially less stable source, e.g., an EGP or a different IGP, is best professional practice. This aligns with the fundamental principle of maintaining network stability by favoring internal routing information when available and reliable. This practice indirectly supports regulatory compliance by ensuring network availability and predictable performance, which are often implicit requirements in service delivery. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach would be to prioritize a route solely based on the shortest metric without considering the administrative distance. This could lead to the selection of a suboptimal or unstable path, potentially causing routing loops or increased convergence times, thereby impacting network availability and performance. This failure to consider administrative distance, a key factor in route selection hierarchy, represents a lapse in professional judgment and could violate implicit SLAs regarding network stability. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the administrative distance altogether and rely on the default values provided by the routing protocol. This demonstrates a lack of understanding of how routing protocols make path selection decisions and can lead to unpredictable routing behavior. It fails to proactively manage the network's routing table, potentially leading to security vulnerabilities or performance degradation, which are unprofessional and could have downstream consequences for service reliability. A third incorrect approach would be to configure the routing protocol to prefer routes with a higher administrative distance. This directly contradicts the established hierarchy of trust in routing information and would likely result in the network selecting less reliable paths, leading to instability and performance issues. This is a clear deviation from best practices and demonstrates a fundamental misunderstanding of routing protocol mechanics. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such decisions by first identifying the routing protocols in use and understanding their respective administrative distance values and route selection algorithms. They should then evaluate the sources of routing information and their relative trustworthiness and stability. The decision-making process should prioritize network stability, performance, and predictability, aligning with the goal of providing reliable network services. This involves a proactive approach to configuration, ensuring that routing decisions are made based on a comprehensive understanding of protocol behavior and network requirements, rather than reactive troubleshooting. Question 11. Governance review demonstrates that a critical network segment is experiencing intermittent performance degradation, impacting user experience. A junior network engineer identifies a potential configuration tweak that, in their assessment, could resolve the issue quickly. However, implementing this change requires bypassing the standard change control process, which mandates a minimum of 48 hours for review and approval by multiple stakeholders, including network architects and security officers. The engineer is under pressure to restore full performance immediately. Which of the following actions best upholds professional responsibility and network integrity? Option A. Ignore the performance issue for now, focusing on other tasks, and hope the problem resolves itself without intervention. Option B. Escalate the issue to the immediate supervisor, clearly outlining the proposed solution, its potential benefits, and the risks associated with bypassing the change control process, requesting expedited approval. Option C. Proceed with the configuration tweak without informing anyone, assuming the positive outcome will justify the action. Option D. Implement the configuration tweak immediately to resolve the performance issue, and then submit the change request for retroactive approval, explaining the urgency. Correct answer is B. Escalate the issue to the immediate supervisor, clearly outlining the proposed solution, its potential benefits, and the risks associated with bypassing the change control process, requesting expedited approval. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation to maintain network integrity and security versus the pressure to meet performance targets, potentially by circumventing established protocols. The core conflict lies in balancing immediate operational demands with long-term network stability and compliance. Careful judgment is required to navigate the temptation of a quick fix that could have unforeseen negative consequences. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes adherence to established change management procedures and the principle of least privilege. By escalating the issue through the proper channels and seeking authorization for any deviation, the network engineer upholds the integrity of the network architecture and avoids unauthorized modifications. This aligns with the principles of responsible network management, ensuring that changes are documented, tested, and approved, thereby minimizing risk to the network's scalability and reliability as defined by the 4A0-100 curriculum. This approach also demonstrates professional accountability and transparency. An incorrect approach that involves directly implementing the proposed configuration change without proper authorization represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It bypasses the documented change control process, which is a fundamental aspect of network governance and risk management. This action could lead to unintended network instability, security vulnerabilities, or performance degradation, directly contradicting the goals of scalable IP networks. Furthermore, it violates the principle of accountability, as the action is taken unilaterally and without oversight. Another incorrect approach, that of ignoring the performance issue and hoping it resolves itself, is also professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a lack of proactivity and responsibility. While it avoids immediate rule breaking, it fails to address a potential problem that could impact network performance and user experience, ultimately undermining the network's scalability and reliability. It also neglects the professional duty to identify and resolve network issues. A third incorrect approach, that of implementing the change and then attempting to retroactively document it, is ethically dubious and professionally risky. While it might seem like a compromise, it still involves unauthorized action. The act of bypassing the approval process, even with the intention of later documentation, undermines the integrity of the change management system and can lead to a culture of noncompliance. It also means that the potential risks associated with the change were not assessed by a wider team, which is a critical part of ensuring network stability. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the organization's change management policies and ethical guidelines. When faced with a conflict between immediate operational needs and established procedures, the professional should 1. Assess the urgency and potential impact of the issue. 2. Consult relevant documentation and policies. 3. Communicate the situation and propose solutions to supervisors or relevant stakeholders. 4. Seek formal authorization for any deviations from standard procedures. 5. Document all actions and communications thoroughly. This structured approach ensures that decisions are made with due diligence, transparency, and in alignment with professional and organizational standards. Question 12. Examination of the data shows unusual traffic patterns on a customer segment that could indicate a performance issue or a potential security incident. The traffic appears to contain sensitive customer information, and immediate analysis is required to diagnose the problem. However, accessing and analyzing this specific traffic requires elevated privileges that have not been explicitly granted for this type of investigation. What is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Document the observed traffic patterns and escalate the issue to the appropriate security or management team for guidance and authorization before proceeding with any analysis. Option B. Ignore the unusual traffic patterns, assuming they are transient and will resolve on their own without intervention. Option C. Immediately access and analyze the sensitive customer traffic to identify and resolve the issue as quickly as possible. Option D. Share the observed traffic patterns with a trusted colleague in another department to get their opinion on the nature of the issue. The correct answer is C. Immediately access and analyze the sensitive customer traffic to identify and resolve the issue as quickly as possible. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge rooted in the ethical obligation to maintain data integrity and confidentiality, particularly within the context of network operations, governed by the 4A0-100 Alcatel Lucent Scalable IP Networks curriculum. The core dilemma lies in balancing the immediate need for troubleshooting with the potential for unauthorized access or disclosure of sensitive customer information. The correct approach prioritizes adherence to established protocols and ethical guidelines, ensuring that any data access is authorized, necessary, and handled with the utmost discretion. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it upholds the principles of data privacy and security, which are paramount in network management. By seeking explicit authorization and adhering to documented procedures for accessing sensitive data, the network engineer demonstrates a commitment to ethical conduct and regulatory compliance. This aligns with the general principles of professional responsibility in IT, which often includes safeguarding customer data and operating within legal and contractual boundaries. While specific regulations for the 4A0-100 exams jurisdiction are not explicitly stated as US, UK, or Australian, the underlying ethical principles of data protection are universally recognized in professional IT environments. An incorrect approach that involves directly accessing and analyzing customer traffic without authorization is a significant ethical and potentially regulatory failure. This action constitutes a breach of privacy and could violate data protection laws, leading to severe consequences for both the individual and the organization. It bypasses established security controls and demonstrates a disregard for the trust placed in the network engineer. Another incorrect approach, which is to ignore the issue and hope it resolves itself, is also professionally unacceptable. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and responsibility. Network issues, especially those potentially impacting customer data, require proactive investigation and resolution. Failing to act can lead to prolonged service disruption, security vulnerabilities, and reputational damage. A third incorrect approach, which is to share the observed traffic patterns with colleagues without a clear business need or authorization, also represents an ethical failure. This can lead to the inadvertent disclosure of sensitive information and a breach of confidentiality. Information sharing must be governed by strict policies to prevent unauthorized access and dissemination. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of organizational policies regarding data access and privacy, as well as a commitment to ethical conduct. When faced with a potential issue involving sensitive data, the first step should always be to consult established procedures and seek appropriate authorization. If unsure, escalating the issue to a supervisor or designated security officer is crucial. This ensures that actions taken are compliant, ethical, and in the best interest of all parties involved. Question 13. Performance analysis shows intermittent packet loss and increased latency on a critical IP network segment. The network utilizes Alcatel Lucent routing devices. Which of the following diagnostic steps represents the most effective initial approach to identify the root cause? Option A. Restart the network interfaces on the Alcatel Lucent routers that are part of the affected segment to clear any potential interface-level glitches. Option B. Verify basic IP connectivity to affected devices and examine the routing tables on the involved Alcatel Lucent routers to confirm the presence and correctness of routes for the affected traffic. Option C. Immediately analyze the Alcatel Lucent specific routing protocol configuration, e.g., ISIS, OSP, for potential flapping or incorrect metric settings. Option D. Initiate a full packet capture on all network interfaces within the affected segment to identify specific offending packets. The correct answer is B. Verify basic IP connectivity to affected devices and examine the routing tables on the involved Alcatel Lucent routers to confirm the presence and correctness of routes for the affected traffic. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in network operations, identifying the root cause of performance degradation when multiple potential factors are at play. The professional challenge lies in efficiently and accurately diagnosing the issue without causing further disruption or making incorrect assumptions. The need for careful judgment arises from the potential impact on service availability and customer experience, as well as the efficient use of network resources and personnel time. Misdiagnosis can lead to prolonged outages, wasted troubleshooting efforts, and reputational damage. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic, layered investigation that begins with the most fundamental aspects of network connectivity and performance. This aligns with the principles of the OSI model and standard network troubleshooting methodologies. By first verifying basic IP connectivity and then examining routing table integrity, a network engineer can quickly rule out or confirm foundational issues. If these are sound, the focus can then shift to more complex factors like congestion or device-specific problems. This methodical approach ensures that the most likely causes are addressed first, minimizing the time to resolution and preventing unnecessary escalation or complex configuration changes. This is best professional practice as it is efficient, effective, and minimizes risk. Incorrect approaches analysis. Immediately assuming a complex routing protocol issue without verifying basic IP reachability is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It wastes valuable troubleshooting time and resources by focusing on a less probable cause. This could be seen as a failure to exercise due diligence in investigating the problem, potentially violating service-level agreements, SLAs, if they mandate timely resolution. Focusing solely on the Alcatel Lucent specific routing protocol configuration without first confirming general IP connectivity and the presence of routes in the routing table is also a failure. While the exam focuses on Alcatel Lucent, a network engineer must first establish that the fundamental IP layer is functioning. This approach risks overlooking simpler, more common issues and could lead to unnecessary configuration changes that might destabilize the network further. Ethically, this represents a lack of thoroughness. Blindly restarting network interfaces or devices without a clear hypothesis or evidence of a specific interface-related failure is a reactive and potentially disruptive approach. This can lead to unintended consequences, such as interrupting other services or masking the true root cause. It demonstrates a lack of analytical rigor and could be considered a breach of professional responsibility if it exacerbates the problem or causes an outage. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured troubleshooting methodology. This typically involves 1. Define the problem, clearly understand the symptoms and impact. 2. Gather information, collect relevant data, logs, performance metrics, topology. 3. Establish a theory of probable cause based on the information, hypothesize potential causes. 4. Test the theory, systematically verify or refute the hypothesis. 5. Establish a plan of action. If the theory is confirmed, plan the fix. 6. Implement the solution, apply the fix. 7. Verify full system functionality. Ensure the problem is resolved and no new issues have arisen. 8. Document findings. Record the problem, cause, and solution for future reference. When faced with performance issues, always start with the most basic layers of the network stack and work upwards, ruling out simpler causes before investigating more complex ones. Question 14. Quality control measures reveal that a critical customer-facing application is experiencing intermittent performance degradation, characterized by increased latency and packet loss. Network monitoring indicates that the traffic for this application is being routed through a suboptimal path, leading to congestion on certain intermediate links, even though alternative, less congested paths exist. The current routing policy is configured to favor shortest path metrics, which are not adequately reflecting the actual link quality or traffic load for this specific service. What is the most appropriate course of action to resolve this issue and ensure consistent performance for the critical application? Option A. Increase the bandwidth of the congested intermediate links to accommodate the current traffic load. Option B. Manually reroute traffic for the critical application on a per-packet basis to bypass congested links. Option C. Implement a more granular routing policy that prioritizes traffic for the critical application based on service criticality and available path quality, potentially utilizing traffic engineering techniques to influence path selection. Option D. Temporarily disable the affected application until a comprehensive network infrastructure overhaul can be completed. Correct answer is C. Implement a more granular routing policy that prioritizes traffic for the critical application based on service criticality and available path quality, potentially utilizing traffic engineering techniques to influence path selection. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in network design where a critical service's performance is degrading due to suboptimal routing decisions. The challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for service restoration with the long-term implications of network stability and adherence to established routing policies. Network engineers must diagnose the root cause without introducing further instability or violating the principles of scalable IP network design. Correct approach analysis. Implementing a more granular routing policy that prioritizes traffic based on service criticality is the best professional practice. This approach aligns with the principles of quality of service, QoS, and scalable IP network design, as outlined in the 4A0-100 curriculum. By defining specific routing metrics and path selection criteria for the affected service, engineers can ensure that its traffic is directed along the most efficient and reliable paths, thereby restoring performance. This proactive and policy-driven solution addresses the symptom, degraded performance, by correcting the underlying cause, suboptimal routing, in a controlled and scalable manner. It demonstrates a deep understanding of how routing protocols interact with traffic engineering to achieve desired network outcomes. Incorrect approaches analysis. Choosing to simply increase the bandwidth of the affected link without addressing the routing issue is a common but flawed approach. This is akin to treating a symptom rather than the disease. While it might temporarily alleviate congestion, it does not resolve the fundamental problem of inefficient path selection. This can lead to other links becoming overutilized or the service continuing to experience intermittent issues due to suboptimal routing. From a regulatory and ethical standpoint, this approach represents a failure to apply due diligence in diagnosing and resolving network issues, potentially leading to recurring service degradations and increased operational costs. Disabling the affected service until a complete network overhaul can be performed is an overly cautious and disruptive approach. While it guarantees no further degradation, It is not a professional solution for a performance issue that can be addressed through targeted configuration changes. This approach fails to meet the professional obligation to maintain service availability and minimize downtime. It also ignores the possibility of a less intrusive and more immediate fix, potentially impacting business operations unnecessarily. Manually rerouting traffic for the affected service on a per-packet basis is not a scalable or sustainable solution. This would require constant intervention and would likely overwhelm network management capabilities. It also bypasses the inherent intelligence of routing protocols and traffic engineering mechanisms, leading to an unstable and unpredictable network state. This approach demonstrates a lack of understanding of fundamental IP networking principles and would be considered unprofessional and potentially violate service-level agreements due to its inherent unreliability. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such scenarios by first performing a thorough root cause analysis using network monitoring and diagnostic tools. Once the issue is identified as suboptimal routing, the decision-making process should involve evaluating solutions that align with established network design principles, scalability, and service requirements. This includes considering traffic engineering techniques, routing policy adjustments, and co-S mechanisms. The chosen solution should be the most efficient, reliable, and least disruptive method to restore service, while ensuring long-term network stability and adherence to best practices. Question 15. Analysis of how a network engineer should configure quality of service, co-S mechanisms on an Alcatel Lucent Scalable IP network to ensure that real-time voice traffic receives preferential treatment over bulk data transfers, thereby meeting contractual service level agreements for voice quality, without relying on simple bandwidth over provisioning as the sole solution. Option A. Configure all network interfaces with the maximum available bandwidth to ensure no traffic experiences congestion, regardless of its type. Option B. Apply a simple first-in, first-out FIFO queuing mechanism across all interfaces, assuming that network devices will naturally handle traffic based on arrival order. Option C. Prioritize traffic based on the source IP address of the originating department, without specific consideration for the application type or its real-time requirements. Option D. Implement a hierarchical quality of service (HQoS) policy that classifies voice traffic into a high-priority queue with guaranteed bandwidth and low latency, while classifying bulk data transfers into a lower-priority queue with best-effort delivery. The correct answer is D. Implement a hierarchical quality of service (HQoS) policy that classifies voice traffic into a high-priority queue with guaranteed bandwidth and low latency, while classifying bulk data transfers into a lower-priority queue with best-effort delivery. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge in network design and implementation where a critical decision regarding traffic prioritization directly impacts service-level agreements, SLAs, and potentially regulatory compliance. The challenge lies in balancing the technical requirements of a scalable IP network with the need to adhere to established service guarantees, which are often implicitly or explicitly governed by industry standards and contractual obligations. Misinterpreting or misapplying prioritization mechanisms can lead to service degradation for certain traffic types, potentially violating contractual terms and impacting customer satisfaction and business operations. The need for careful judgment arises from the potential for unintended consequences of network configuration choices. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding of the Alcatel Lucent Scalable IP Networks framework, specifically focusing on quality of service, co-S mechanisms like weighted fair queuing WFQ, or similar hierarchical co-S, HQoS, implementation. Best professional practice dictates that network engineers must configure these mechanisms to align with defined business priorities and contractual SLAs. This means identifying critical traffic flows, e.g., voice, video conferencing, critical business applications, and assigning them appropriate priority levels and bandwidth guarantees. The justification for this approach is rooted in ensuring network performance meets expectations, preventing congestion-induced packet loss or latency for high-priority services, and thereby upholding contractual obligations and maintaining customer trust. Adherence to the principles of co-S within the Alcatel-Lucent framework ensures that the network is not only scalable, but also reliable and performant for its intended use cases. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to implement a best effort delivery model for all traffic without any form of prioritization. This fails to acknowledge the diverse nature of network traffic and the varying criticality of different applications. Ethically and professionally, this is unacceptable as it disregards potential SLAs and the expectation of reliable service for critical applications. It can lead to significant service degradation, impacting business operations and potentially resulting in contractual breaches. Another incorrect approach is to prioritize traffic based on arbitrary criteria, such as the source IP address of a specific department, without a clear understanding of the business impact or contractual requirements. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and can lead to unintended consequences, such as starving critical traffic from other departments or applications. This approach is professionally unsound as it lacks a data-driven or business-aligned rationale, increasing the risk of noncompliance with service expectations. A third incorrect approach is to over-provision bandwidth for all traffic types as a sole solution to congestion, neglecting the importance of intelligent prioritization. While increased bandwidth can alleviate some issues, it is not a substitute for effective CoS. This approach is inefficient and costly, and it fails to address the fundamental need to manage and prioritize traffic flows during periods of congestion. Professionally, it represents a missed opportunity to optimize network resources and ensure consistent performance for critical services. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach network design and configuration with a clear understanding of the business objectives and contractual obligations. This involves a systematic process of identifying critical applications and traffic flows, assessing their performance requirements, latency, jitter, bandwidth, and then mapping these requirements to the appropriate CoS mechanisms available within the Alcatel Lucent Scalable IP Networks framework. A thorough review of SLAs and consultation with stakeholders are essential. When faced with configuration choices, professionals should always consider the potential impact on service delivery and compliance. If unsure, seeking guidance from senior engineers or consulting official documentation and best practice guides is paramount. The decision-making process should be iterative, involving testing and monitoring to validate that the implemented CoS policies are achieving the desired outcomes and meeting all service-level expectations. Question 16. Risk assessment procedures indicate a critical security vulnerability has been identified in a core component of the Alcatel Lucent Scalable IP Networks infrastructure. The vulnerability, if exploited, could lead to significant data exfiltration. However, applying the vendor-provided patch requires a network-wide reboot, which is projected to cause a minimum of 2 hours of downtime for all critical business services. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action? Option A. Conduct a rapid, targeted impact assessment of the vulnerability and the proposed patch's effects on critical services before proceeding with any remediation. Option B. Immediately deploy the patch to all affected network components to eliminate the security risk. Option C. Defer patching indefinitely until a less disruptive maintenance window can be scheduled. Assuming the risk of exploitation is low, Option D. Prioritize patching only the most critical servers directly handling sensitive data, bypassing the broader network reboot. Correct answer is B. Immediately deploy the patch to all affected network components to eliminate the security risk. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in network management where a newly identified vulnerability requires immediate attention, but the potential impact on critical services is not fully understood. The professional challenge lies in balancing the urgency of patching a known vulnerability against the risk of disrupting essential business operations. Without a thorough understanding of the network's dependencies and the potential consequences of a patch deployment, a hasty decision could lead to significant financial losses, reputational damage, and a breach of service-level agreements, SLAs. The complexity is amplified by the need to consider the specific operational context of the Alcatel Lucent Scalable IP Networks environment, which may have unique configurations and interdependencies. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic risk assessment that prioritizes understanding the potential impact of the vulnerability and the proposed mitigation. This aligns with best practices in network security and operational management, which emphasize informed decision-making. Specifically, it involves 1. Vulnerability analysis. understanding the nature of the vulnerability, its exploitability, and the potential damage it could cause if exploited. 2. Impact assessment, determining which critical services and business functions rely on the affected network components and what the consequences would be if those services were disrupted. This includes evaluating the potential for data loss, service downtime, and financial impact. 3. Mitigation strategy evaluation, assessing the proposed patch or mitigation, including its effectiveness, potential side effects, and the feasibility of deployment. This might involve testing in a staging environment. 4. Risk prioritization. Based on the above, prioritizing the remediation efforts. If the risk of exploitation is high and the impact of the vulnerability is severe, a rapid deployment might be justified, but only after a rapid, albeit condensed, impact assessment. If the risk is lower or the potential disruption from patching is too high, alternative mitigation strategies might be considered, or a scheduled maintenance window might be chosen. This methodical approach ensures that security measures are implemented without introducing unacceptable operational risks, thereby upholding professional responsibility and maintaining service continuity. Incorrect approaches analysis. Applying a patch immediately without a proper risk assessment is a failure to exercise due diligence. This approach ignores the potential for unintended consequences, such as service outages or data corruption, which could be more damaging than the vulnerability itself. Ethically, it breaches the professional duty to protect the integrity and availability of network services. Delaying any action indefinitely because of the potential for disruption is also a failure. While caution is necessary, ignoring a known vulnerability, especially one with a high potential impact, exposes the organization to significant security risks. This inaction can lead to a breach, resulting in severe financial and reputational damage, and potentially violating regulatory compliance requirements related to data protection and system security. Focusing solely on the technical aspects of the patch without considering the business impact is another flawed approach. Network infrastructure exists to support business operation. A decision that prioritizes a technical fix over business continuity is professionally unsound and can lead to significant operational and financial repercussions. Professional reasoning. Professionals in network management must adopt a risk-based decision-making framework. This involves 1. Identification, recognizing potential threats and vulnerabilities. 2. Analysis, understanding the likelihood and impact of these threats. 3. Evaluation, comparing the identified risks against predefined criteria. 4. Treatment, developing and implementing strategies to mitigate, transfer, accept, or avoid risks. 5. Monitoring and review, continuously assessing the effectiveness of risk treatments and adapting as necessary. In situations involving security vulnerabilities, the process should be iterative and responsive, but always grounded in a thorough understanding of the potential consequences for the business. This ensures that security investments are proportionate to the risks and that operational stability is maintained. Question 17. The audit findings indicate a consistent pattern of intermittent packet loss and increased latency across several key network segments, impacting user experience and application performance. Which of the following diagnostic approaches best aligns with optimizing the resolution process and adhering to established network operational best practices? Option A. Rely on user-reported symptoms and anecdotal evidence to guide the troubleshooting efforts, prioritizing fixes based on the loudest complaints. Option B. Immediately deploy a network-wide configuration rollback to a previous known stable state, assuming a recent change caused the issue. Option C. Begin by verifying the physical layer integrity, link status, and error counters on all affected network devices, followed by an analysis of routing protocol adjacencies and traffic flow patterns. Option D. Initiate a comprehensive review of application configurations and server performance metrics to identify potential bottlenecks at the application layer. The correct answer is D. Initiate a comprehensive review of application configurations and server performance metrics to identify potential bottlenecks at the application layer. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in network operations where performance degradation is observed, but the root cause is not immediately apparent. The professional challenge lies in efficiently diagnosing the issue without disrupting ongoing services or incurring unnecessary costs. The audit findings suggest a potential systemic problem rather than an isolated incident, necessitating a structured and evidence-based approach to resolution. The pressure to restore optimal performance quickly, coupled with the need to adhere to operational procedures and potentially service-level agreements, SLAs, adds to the complexity. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic, layered investigation that begins with verifying the integrity and performance of the core network infrastructure. This aligns with best practices in network troubleshooting and process optimization, as outlined in the 4A0-100 curriculum. By first examining the physical and data link layers, and then progressing to network and transport layers, engineers can efficiently isolate the problem domain. This methodical process minimizes the risk of misdiagnosis and ensures that resources are applied effectively. For instance, checking link status, error counters, and basic connectivity at lower layers can quickly rule out physical or media access issues before delving into more complex routing or transport protocol problems. This systematic approach is crucial for maintaining network stability and meeting performance objectives, which are often implicitly or explicitly tied to operational guidelines and service delivery standards. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediately focusing on application-level issues without first validating the underlying network infrastructure. This is professionally unsound because it assumes a specific cause without empirical evidence and can lead to wasted effort and time. It bypasses the fundamental troubleshooting steps required by network engineering best practices, potentially overlooking critical infrastructure problems that are the true root cause. This could lead to a failure to meet performance targets and potentially violate operational mandates that require a structured diagnostic process. Another incorrect approach is to implement broad, unverified configuration changes across the network in an attempt to fix the perceived problem. This is highly risky and unprofessional. Such actions can introduce new, unforeseen issues, exacerbate the existing problem, or cause widespread service disruption. It demonstrates a lack of analytical rigor and a failure to follow established change management and troubleshooting protocols, which are essential for maintaining network integrity and compliance with operational standards. A third incorrect approach is to rely solely on anecdotal evidence or the reports of a few users without conducting objective, data-driven analysis. While user feedback is valuable, it should be a starting point for investigation, not the sole basis for action. Without systematic data collection and analysis, e.g., traffic statistics, error logs, performance metrics, any proposed solution is speculative and unlikely to address the actual root cause. This approach fails to meet the professional obligation to diagnose and resolve issues based on verifiable data, potentially leading to prolonged outages or suboptimal network performance. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a structured, evidence-based decision-making process. This involves 1. Understanding the reported problem and its impact. 2. Formulating hypotheses about potential causes. 3. Prioritizing hypotheses based on likelihood and impact. 4. Designing and executing tests to validate or invalidate hypotheses starting with the most fundamental layers of the network. 5. Collecting and analyzing data from tests. 6. Implementing solutions based on validated findings. 7. Verifying the effectiveness of the solution and documenting the process. This systematic approach ensures that troubleshooting is efficient, effective, and minimizes risk, aligning with professional standards of care and operational excellence. Question 18. Research into the implementation of secure routing protocols within a new enterprise network deployment, a core topic in the 4A0-100 Alcatel Lucent Scalable IP Networks curriculum, has revealed a critical access control list, ACL, configuration that is essential for preventing unauthorized routing updates. The project manager, citing aggressive deployment deadlines, has suggested bypassing this specific ACL configuration for the initial launch, with a plan to implement it during a subsequent maintenance window. As a network engineer responsible for the integrity of the deployment, what is the most appropriate course of action? Option A. Bypass the access control list, ACL, configuration entirely, as the project manager has deemed it non-critical for the initial launch. Option B. Proceed with the network deployment without the access control list, ACL, deferring its implementation to a later, unspecified maintenance window. Option C. Implement the access control list, ACL, without thorough validation and testing to meet the project deadline. Option D. Insist on the immediate and correct implementation of the access control list, ACL, as per the design specifications, even if it requires adjusting the deployment timeline. The correct answer is D. Insist on the immediate and correct implementation of the access control list, ACL, as per the design specifications, even if it requires adjusting the deployment timeline. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge in network implementation where a critical security feature, mandatory under the Alcatel Lucent Scalable IP Networks framework, specifically related to secure routing protocols and access control lists as per the 4A0-100 syllabus, is being overlooked due to time pressure and perceived complexity. The challenge lies in balancing project deadlines with the non-negotiable requirement for robust network security. The pressure to deploy quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise long-term stability and compliance. Careful judgment is required to identify the risk and advocate for the correct implementation, even when it causes delays. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves prioritizing the implementation of the mandatory security feature, even if it necessitates a delay in the overall deployment timeline. This aligns with best professional practice because the 4A0-100 syllabus emphasizes secure network design and operation. Implementing mandatory security controls, such as robust access control lists, ACL, and secure routing protocol configurations, is not merely a recommendation but a fundamental requirement for maintaining network integrity and preventing unauthorized access. Adhering to these security mandates ensures compliance with the implicit regulatory framework governing network deployments, which prioritizes data protection and service availability. This approach demonstrates a commitment to professional responsibility and risk mitigation, safeguarding the network and its users. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing the security feature without proper validation and testing is professionally unacceptable. This approach risks introducing misconfigurations that could inadvertently block legitimate traffic or create new security vulnerabilities, directly contravening the principles of secure network operation taught in the 4A0-100 curriculum. It also fails to adhere to the systematic approach required for network changes, potentially leading to unforeseen operational issues. Deferring the implementation of the security feature to a later, post-deployment phase is also professionally unsound. This approach creates a significant security gap during the critical initial operational period of the network. The 4A0-100 syllabus stresses the importance of proactive security measures, and delaying a mandatory feature leaves the network exposed to threats that could have been prevented. This decision prioritizes expediency over security, a direct ethical and professional failure. Ignoring the security feature altogether and proceeding with deployment is the most egregious failure. This demonstrates a complete disregard for the security requirements outlined in the 4A0-100 framework and the fundamental principles of network engineering. It exposes the organization to severe security risks, potential data breaches, and noncompliance with industry best practices and implicit regulatory expectations for network security. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such a dilemma should first clearly identify the mandatory nature of the security feature within the context of the 4A0-100 syllabus and its implications for network security and compliance. They should then communicate the risks associated with bypassing or deferring this feature to project stakeholders, emphasizing the potential consequences of security breaches and operational instability. The decision-making process should involve a risk-based assessment, where the immediate pressure of a deadline is weighed against the long-term risks to security and operational integrity. Advocating for the correct implementation, even if it means adjusting timelines, represents the most responsible and professional course of action, ensuring that the deployed network is both functional and secure. Question 19. Market research demonstrates a significant increase in demand for high-bandwidth, low-latency services from a new enterprise client. The client has presented a specific network configuration proposal that they believe will meet their immediate needs. As a network engineer responsible for implementing this solution within the existing Alcatel Lucent IP network infrastructure, which approach best balances the client's urgent requirements with the long-term health and scalability of the provider's network. Option A. Deploy a solution using a mix of new, unproven Alcatel Lucent features and older, legacy configurations that appear to meet the client's immediate bandwidth and latency requirements, assuming these can be quickly integrated. Option B. Conduct a thorough technical assessment of the client's proposed configuration against the provider's network architecture, operational policies, and scalability roadmap. Design and implement a solution that leverages appropriate Alcatel Lucent technologies and best practices, potentially involving modifications to the client's proposal to ensure optimal integration and long-term performance. Option C. Accept the client's proposed configuration without extensive technical validation, assuming their expertise in their own application requirements guarantees its suitability for the provider's network. Option D. Immediately implement the client's proposed network configuration as presented, prioritizing speed of deployment to secure the new business, and address any potential network impacts or scalability concerns in a later phase. Correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough technical assessment of the client's proposed configuration against the provider's network architecture, operational policies, and scalability roadmap. Design and implement a solution that leverages appropriate Alcatel Lucent technologies and best practices, potentially involving modifications to the client's proposal to ensure optimal integration and long-term performance. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in network design, where a service provider must balance the immediate demands of a new, high-profile client with the long-term stability and scalability of their existing network infrastructure. The pressure to deliver a solution quickly for a significant revenue opportunity can lead to compromises that might violate established network design principles or future-proofing strategies. The challenge lies in making a decision that is technically sound, commercially viable, and adheres to any implicit or explicit service-level agreements and operational best practices, even under time constraints. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough assessment of the client's specific requirements and a detailed analysis of how these requirements can be met without negatively impacting the existing network's performance, security, or scalability. This includes evaluating the capacity of current hardware, the efficiency of existing routing protocols, and the potential for congestion. The chosen solution should leverage existing Alcatel Lucent technologies and best practices for scalable IP networks, ensuring that any new implementation is integrated seamlessly and adheres to the principles of modularity and future growth. This approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes network integrity and long-term operational efficiency, aligning with the core objectives of scalable IP network design, as outlined in the 4A0-100 curriculum. It demonstrates a commitment to providing a robust and sustainable solution rather than a quick fix. Incorrect approach is analysis. Implementing a solution that bypasses standard provisioning and configuration procedures, even if it appears to meet the client's immediate needs, is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This could lead to undocumented network changes, increased vulnerability to misconfigurations, and difficulties in troubleshooting or future upgrades. It violates the principle of disciplined network management and operational control. Deploying a solution that relies on deprecated or unsupported Alcatel Lucent features or protocols solely to expedite deployment is also professionally unacceptable. This approach ignores the long-term supportability and security implications, potentially exposing the network to vulnerabilities and increasing operational costs due to the eventual need for costly remediation. It fails to adhere to the principles of using current and supported technologies for network stability and security. Accepting the client's proposed solution without independent technical validation, even if it seems simpler, is a failure to exercise due diligence. This could result in a solution that is not optimized for the provider's network, is difficult to manage, or introduces unforeseen performance issues, bypasses the professional responsibility to ensure that all network changes are technically sound and aligned with the provider's operational standards and strategic goals. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such situations by first understanding the client's business objectives and technical requirements. This understanding should then be mapped against the capabilities and constraints of the existing network infrastructure and the provider's operational policies. A structured approach involving impact analysis, solution design, testing, and phased deployment is crucial. When faced with time pressure, it is essential to communicate potential risks and delays to stakeholders, rather than compromising on technical integrity or operational best practices. The decision-making process should prioritize network stability, security, scalability, and long-term maintainability, ensuring that any solution aligns with the principles taught in the 4A0-100 curriculum. Question 20. Strategic planning requires a proactive approach to network implementation, especially when deploying critical services like a new financial trading platform. Given the tight deadline for this deployment, which emphasizes low latency and high availability, what is the most professionally responsible course of action regarding network design and security? Option A. Prioritize meeting the low latency and high availability targets above all else, deferring any in-depth security assessments until after the platform is operational. Option B. Implement the new platform using a move fast and break things methodology, assuming that any issues can be addressed post-deployment. Option C. Proceed with the deployment as quickly as possible, relying on the existing network security infrastructure to mitigate any unforeseen risks. Option D. Conduct a thorough network design review that explicitly incorporates security considerations specific to the financial trading platform's requirements and potential vulnerabilities. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough network design review that explicitly incorporates security considerations specific to the financial trading platform's requirements and potential vulnerabilities. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common implementation challenge in large-scale IP networks: the need to balance the immediate demands of a critical service deployment with the long-term implications of network design choices. The pressure to meet deadlines for a new financial trading platform, which inherently requires low latency and high availability, can lead to shortcuts or suboptimal configurations. The challenge lies in resisting the temptation to implement a quick fix that might compromise scalability, security, or manageability in the future, especially when dealing with sensitive financial data. The professional challenge is to advocate for a robust and compliant solution, despite time constraints and potential stakeholder pressure for rapid deployment. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves prioritizing a thorough network design review that explicitly considers the security implications of the new financial trading platform. This aligns with the fundamental principles of network engineering and the implicit regulatory expectations for handling sensitive data, even if specific regulations are not explicitly stated for this exam's jurisdiction. A comprehensive review ensures that the design adheres to best practices for security, such as implementing appropriate access controls, encryption, and network segmentation. This proactive stance prevents potential security vulnerabilities that could lead to data breaches, financial losses, and reputational damage. It represents best professional practice because it demonstrates a commitment to building a secure, reliable, and compliant network infrastructure that safeguards critical business operations and sensitive information. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing the new platform without a dedicated security review, relying solely on existing network security measures, is professionally unacceptable. This approach fails to acknowledge the unique security requirements of a financial trading platform and the potential for new vulnerabilities introduced by its integration. Risks overlooking specific threats or compliance gaps, leading to potential regulatory violations related to data protection and financial transaction integrity. Adopting a move fast and break things mentality, prioritizing speed of deployment over thoroughness, is also professionally unacceptable. This approach disregards the inherent risks associated with financial systems, where even minor disruptions can have significant financial consequences. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to adhere to the professional responsibility of ensuring network stability and security, potentially leading to breaches of service-level agreements and regulatory noncompliance. Focusing solely on meeting the low-latency requirements without a parallel assessment of security implications is a critical failure. While low latency is crucial for financial trading, neglecting security can render the platform vulnerable to attacks that could disrupt operations, compromise data, or lead to financial fraud, all of which carry significant regulatory and ethical ramifications. Professional reasoning. Professionals in network implementation must adopt a risk-based decision-making framework. This involves identifying potential risks, security, performance, compliance, assessing their likelihood and impact, and developing mitigation strategies. When faced with competing priorities like speed and security, the framework dictates that critical services, especially those handling sensitive data, must undergo rigorous security and compliance checks. Professionals should advocate for adequate time and resources for these reviews, escalating concerns if deadlines threaten to compromise essential safeguards. The principle of security by design should guide all network deployments, ensuring that security is an integral part of the planning and implementation process, not an afterthought.